thanks for being here. I appreciate you very much in watching these videos, and I'm constantly getting new subscribers and donations, either singular donations or support through the Patreon channel. People are watching the videos on Cocoscope, and visits to threefoldlotus.com have increased. So I know that you guys are studying and practicing, and it's very exciting. So thank you so much for your participation and your practice. NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. All right, so this is part 4. It's brief. We're going to close out this Go-Sho on the consecration of images of Shakyamuni Buddha. And I just want to recap, because there's very little. Nichiren ends this Go-Sho with just a very brief word. It's kind of frustrating for us as students, but this is a letter to Shijo Kingo, and we've already discussed the difficulty of getting messages to one another and travel and all that. So he ends this letter with, "It is difficult to write down all that I would like to tell you. That is why I have not gone into matters of doctrine here." He's done a lot of scholarship here and talked about, in fairness, he's used more of the folklore of Japan as example than he has actual sutras, although he's quoted the Lotus and other sutras as well. So he says, as for the sutra, I will, page turning karma again. Oh, come on. Okay. As for the sutra, I will copy it out for you when the weather gets a little cooler. With my deep respect, Nichiren. So, this is how he ends the letter. It's interesting that Shijo Kingo is important enough of a follower, a student of, because he's a high-ranking samurai and he's a teacher of others, which is no doubt also why Nichiren would point out that he's dealing with so many, what would you say, what's the right word? The reaction around him from his subordinate samurai and his lord, that he stopped this nonsense with Nichiren and just fall into line with the Nembutsu or true word or whatever the flavor of the day was, because he's such a stalwart student and supporter of Nichiren, vocal supporter. He's bringing a lot of negativity about this subject to himself. So Nichiren also in this letter is cautioning him to act wisely. Keep your eyes open. Don't just go willy-nilly into the night because somebody says, oh, the boss wants to see you, but it's 2 in the morning. Oh, he wants to see you right away. You know, don't fall for that, you know. So, well, I'll get there later, and just put it off. And if a messenger gets sent 3 times to get you to go to your boss's residence, then maybe send a feeler out there and see if it's not an actual request from your boss. You don't want to piss him off after all. So anyway, what we've learned in this Go-Sho, and I think the important lesson here, is that Nichiren's diplomacy here. Shijo Kingo, and I think the motivation for Nichiren, as I was trying to get to before and got lost, wants to write down actual sutra, because this wasn't, you couldn't go to Amazon and order a book. So a lot of the doctrinal, the sutras themselves were not that easy to attain, and certainly you had to be careful what entity or who you got your copy, as it were, of these different sutras. So Nichiren is going to use his library and copy out with his own commentary the Lotus Sutra and the relevant portions of other sutras that deal with consecration of imagery. flat out, what he wants to tell Shijo Kingo is, you know, making images of the Buddha is valueless. It has no basis in your practice as a Buddhist. It's one of those age-old traditional kind of homages that was paid because as earthly beings we are forever attached to thingness. And so generations, hundreds, thousands of years since Shakyamuni's passing, even at his behest of no, don't worship me, don't make images of me, don't worship images of me, don't practice that way. That's not Buddhism. Study, meditate, and find your particular path to your Buddha wisdom, which is already there. Don't look for it elsewhere. Don't attach yourself to things in order to make them holy or powerful. You're the powerful one, right? This has been the message from the get-go, but we humans are stubborn, right? And Nichiren, in a way, in the history of Buddhism, kind of caves to this a little bit, but he turns it into a very, very potent positive. If you study and keep this in mind. The entire motivation for Nichiren to create this mandala, the mandala of Nichiren Buddhism, is that he didn't create a personage, an image of a personage, an image of worship. That's not what this is. People make this mistake all the time. And it's because of our human nature. So I'm not rapping you on the back of the hand right now if you've done that. But do not look at this mandala as though it is the power of your enlightenment. It's just a piece of paper with characters on it. Now, Nichiren created this after many, many efforts in his teachings and travels to leave people or families some form of inspiration that they could latch onto, because humans are humans, that would direct them with some essential purity, without distraction or attachment outside of it. Because Nichiren's whole thing about earthly desires are enlightenment is that our Buddhahood is extant, it's there. But for some reason, our human samsaric minds are so preoccupied with stuff, with mirroring, right? Well, how often have you heard the term, oh, he's just projecting? Oh, he's angry at this and that, but he's spouting nonsense and furor at you, but it's not you that he's mad at. He's externalizing his anger and his emotions, right? As human beings, we take this for granted as this is normal. And so Nichiren gets this idea, and he understands that, you know, it's so hard, and in Shakyamuni's own words, it's so difficult to enact this practice and enlighten yourself, to see as a human being that all of that potential is already there, just awaken it. We constantly are looking for something to do it for us, or expressing our own struggles outward instead of inward. So he says, well, if that's human nature, then how can we trick it? How can we give it something that can't be attached to anything other than itself, which is itself within the self? How can I do that? And he recognizes the Lotus Sutra is the pinnacle, the absolute ultimate methodology that Shakyamuni started to teach, but just confused everyone. And what do you mean? What do you? They didn't have the capacity to understand it. So he had to teach in steps to finally get to that point where you lay it on everyone. Okay, you're ready to hear this. Well, some of you are anyway. Those who are students of Buddhism, of what I've been teaching, have evolved and grown in yourself this ability, this capacity to understand these concepts. And in the future, people will just be born into that capability. But right now in my life, this is the culminating teaching, and those of you who can get it will get it. And it's up to you to spread this far and wide, because the purpose of Buddhism is that anyone, no matter what their state of life, their life condition, by doing this can without doubt enliven, invoke their already extant Buddha nature, their Buddha mind, their clarity. You know, the old saying, oh, he knew better, she knew better, you know better. Yeah, we do. But it's buried underneath all of this maze of labyrinth of attachments and emotions and what have you. So this is the tool to liberate your mind. It's right here in the Lotus Sutra. Just practice this NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. This is your doorbell. This is your window to in your own head to get it. But that's still difficult to do. So what the brilliance of Nichiren is, if I take those words of Shakyamuni, who's saying just do this, and I encapsulate it in written form, it's kind of like a written affirmation, is it? If you're too young for this, please forgive me, but you'll understand it immediately. There was quite a period of time in the 70s, 80s, somewhat in the 90s, that it changed in the 90s to vision boards. You've probably heard about that. It started out as being just positive affirmations. A lot of self-help gurus went into the write down a simple statement about something you want to accomplish in your life, and then print it out and put it on your bathroom mirror, put it on your refrigerator, put it around the house. So everywhere you go, you're constantly reminding yourself. Right? There it is, the device that captures your attention for a moment and just reconcentrates you on your goal, because you're constantly drifting as a human, right? Brilliant. This is what Nichiren did, except that instead of I want to lose 50 pounds, or I want to learn this language, or whatever the affirmation, he's saying NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Wake up, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Wake up your Buddha nature, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. So what's down the middle of this mandala? NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Reminder. And to support that reminder, to, again, because your mind will drift, right? Just like the I want to lose weight, but the donuts are there, right? This is how our mind works. So he surrounds NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo with the concepts, the core concepts that Buddha used, Shakyamuni Buddha used, to support this holistic, simple method that anyone could practice. So if your mind, your eyes, your mind drifts at all off of NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, here's the reason NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Here's this part, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Where are you going? Where are you going? Come back, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. That's the form of that mandala. That's why it's in the center. That's why the size of the characters vary, because there are parameters, there are support for those parameters. That's the mechanics of that mandala. And the only reason, ultimately, that mandala works, because it doesn't, see, there is no power in it. You don't put it up in your house and go, now, everything's fine. No, that's not Buddhism. It's not a worship external practice. This is a tool. And when you sit in front of it, straight up, at attention, eyes focused, listening, feeling, expressing NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, that is the power of this tool. Because as a human, you externalize. And if you externalize to this mandala, you're looking right back at yourself and your Buddha nature. But how does it awaken? How does that mirror work? By you chanting NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Now you've really cut this thing out of the circuit. But as a human, you're motivated and you see it. But what you're seeing is within you. Do you see how Nichiren uses our very situation? That's how he sees it. Samsara is a situation, and that situation has tendencies and conditions. And I'm going to use those tendencies and conditions, earthly desires, and I'm going to trick them toward direct enlightenment and invocation of Buddha nature with clarity. That's immense. That's clever, but it's also intensely human. And if there's anything about Buddhism that you can take away, is that it's not about an after or before life or reaching outside wherever it is, wealth of whatever. It's all about self-realization of this Buddha nature, not self, but transcending self, the self of samsara, to the clear, open, complete realization of the process of all life, which of course is happening through you, an individual, your own particular path. That's why Mandala of Gohonzon. That's why NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. That's how we enlighten and invoke. Because you can sit in a dark cave for 30 years of your life meditating on what Buddhahood is like, but you won't experience it. You may experience many things. You may be the 1 in a million who actually attains enlightenment doing that. But it's not universal. Not everyone can do that. But NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, everyone can do. And that is the door. And that is what it looks like. But that's only a reminder of what is already extant in you. So there's no worship. There's just realization. There's awakening. There's all these words, even though they're translations of concepts, rely on all of the concepts that are characterized in this mandala, but that they're a result of study. This is why, as you've heard me say many times, the Lotus Sutra sits atop all of the previous teachings. This is why if you only read the Lotus Sutra, you will have a much more difficult time understanding what we're doing here, because it relies on this background information. It's like never learning anything about mathematics and suddenly bringing up or opening up a book on calculus. It'll be entertaining reading, but much of what's going on will just, because you haven't learned algebra, you haven't learned trigonometry, you haven't learned math, right? So this is the Lotus Sutra. It's the ultimate thesis. So you may get a lot out of studying the thesis, but when you go back and study the material that supports it, that predates it, you will call back then to that thesis. Oh, that's what that meant, right? That's why all of this is captured in this mandala. The concepts that the Lotus Sutra is built upon for you to get this, again, center, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, the voice of your own Buddha nature. I hope that all makes sense for you, because in this letter to Shijo Kingo, Nichiren, you could almost sense, kind of wants to wrap him awake and go, what are you doing this for? But then Nichiren, with tremendous compassion, says, Shijo Kingo did this as a spiritualization, a gift to his deceased parents. He's putting so much of his emotion and respect and filial responsibility into this act, not this image, but the act of creating this thing, this image of Shakyamuni Buddha, to whom he's expressing tremendous respect as well, as a sort of karmic pathway to resolving his karma, his feelings about his parents, feelings being samsaric, right? So Nichiren understands the tremendous effort that Shijo Kingo is making here. It's like when your little girl or your little boy runs up to you and go, look, mommy, look, daddy, look what I made. Can we put it on the refrigerator? Intellectually, you look at it and go, oh my God, it's a scribble of 2 colors of crayon, right? What the heck? But compassionately, it's your child expressing joy over something he or she created, and you want to support that kind of joy, that kind of feeling. You don't want to stifle it. So you go, oh, that's beautiful. Let's put it on the fridge and go make another one for mommy, or go make another one for your dad. You know, that's what you do when you're a parent. And what is a teacher? What are we as bodhisattvas? We are parent, teacher, and sovereign. You can come to me for protection. You can come to me for knowledge and assistance in your studies, and I will take care of you. I will make sure you do not go in an inappropriate direction and harm yourself. Right? Parent, teacher, and sovereign. And this is Nichiren acting out these very pillars of Buddhism, of Bodhisattva. So he's not telling Shijo Kingo, you don't understand what you're doing. But at the same time, he's using those sensations and those feelings and those needs that Shijo Kingo is expressing and shifting their footing, instead of emotions, to Buddhist awareness, awakening, sutra, NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. This has meaning if it's supported by NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. This has meaning if it comes through your knowledge of NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Understand what you're actually doing with appreciation to your intent. Remember, Buddhism is about intent and attitude. Make sure that your attitude and your core of that intent is based on NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo, your awakening, because that's where it all actually resides, right? So this is what the scroll is for, is to remind you what your cause is, what your mission is, where all of your joy and happiness actually occurs. And that's the whole point of this letter. And Nichiren feels motivated to further document it and send it to Shijo Kingo, so Shijo Kingo has it as a document to study, as a reminder, as a mandala of sorts. This is why Nichiren develops this mandala over time, because he realizes human beings need this center, this object to reflect what they're doing, even if they don't understand that that's what's going on. Because earthly desires are enlightenment. Not a path to enlightenment, not an addition to enlightenment, not a capacity to go and search out and find enlightenment. It's already there. Earthly desires are enlightenment. You just need to perceive them differently. Perceive their source. All right? I hope, well, this is kind of a short one, but this is very important that we understand that even though the English translation's about consecrating an image and not knowing, you know, consecration, what is that? It's used in a lot of religions to give power, our power, out to some person, place, thing, place, geography. That's a very abused one. When, oh when, Buddhism says, will you understand that all of what's going on, what you're searching for, it's already in you. You simply need to awaken it. Stop throwing your lives at samsara, thingness, attachments. Have that. Yeah, you're human. But keep coming back to the center, that it is your perception that matters. Everything is enlightenment. If you open the curtains, if you remove your delusions of attachments to other things, you will see it. It's so clear. Then you're free to simply embrace it all. That's Buddhist joy. That realization. All right, gone on long enough. Thank you so much. Remember, all these videos are available in audio form through podcast, the Buddhahood Podcast. I said it. For those of you who don't know why I did that, I had trouble saying those 3 words in a row for some reason. Karma. The Buddhahood Podcast, available wherever you get your podcasts. Anyway, see you in the next one. Thank you for being here. NaMuMyoHoRenGeKyo. Stay healthy and keep your practice strong. Bye.